I I made a big claim, and the claim that I made in this five-part seminar is that there's information that's going to be given to you that's going to help you make your book a bestseller before you've written the first word. Now, I know that sounds very counterintuitive because bestsellers normally would be because of the words that are in the book. But the reason why I call it that is because in my 35 plus years of product development with information products and also with book publishing, I have 100% learned that what you do before you write your book is extremely important to the outcome of it. And so that's really what we're talking about here today, is that there's people that are professionals, people that this is what they do for a living, and they put different books out. And I have 3 case studies I'm going to show you guys tonight of people that I've worked with. And the reason why I want to do that specifically is because I want to expand your thinking. I think it's hard for us, last week I asked the question, what's your end game? What is it you're wanting, to get out of here? This is, these are the questions we talked about. What are your expectations if you do a book? What's the end game? And when you write a book, or even if you're developing a ministry or a company or a business or a software or whatever it happens to be, it really doesn't matter what it is. The big question becomes, what is it that you're actually trying to solve here? Because you have to be solving a problem. If you're not solving a problem, then there's no reason for anybody to buy your solution. So that is a big deal. And there's a couple of things that I had suggested that it might be worth doing. Just, we had this primer last week of this idea that the author is the product. And so we're trying to expand, or, we're trying to widen our vision a little bit, not just to look at this specific book part that we're doing, but what's the bigger picture here? Who are we? What's our story? What is it we're trying to get across? So anyway, 2 of the other things that I asked you to think about was, who else is in your space? And we'll talk a little bit about the competitive part of this and, who else is in your space. And then how can you stand out? So I mentioned a minute ago that author pros think differently. And so tonight, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to just actually show you some real world examples of things that I've done in the past, projects that I've worked on. And I think it might help give you an idea, expand your vision a little bit, and help give you an idea of, oh man, I never even thought about doing that, but gosh, that is actually something that would be in my wheelhouse. That would connect. That would be something that would complement what I'm doing with this book. Because, if you're solely doing something like publishing a book because you're wanting to become independently wealthy and become a millionaire, it's probably not going to happen. That's not normally how people are becoming multimillionaires these days, is writing books. Most of the time, books are a means to an end. They're connecting somebody to something else. Let me make sure we don't have any other Zoom people that might be hopping on. Bear with me, guys. It looks like we're not. So we record these, and we'll be able to put this up immediately. We'll send it out tomorrow, so everybody will be able to watch it that wasn't able to connect tonight. So, all right. So anyway, so one of the questions is, what is it that's your message? So the question I post here is, what is the problem that you want to fix? So I do a lot of books with pastors and guys that are in that space that are itinerant ministries. They travel, they speak. My father-in-law is one of them. So right out of ORU and with a marketing degree in my back pocket, I started working in the seminar business and understanding the power of information products, not only to change people's thinking and transform their lives, but I mean, those information products actually become, you can sell them or donate or however you're going to work it. Everybody has a different model. It's what creates the ability for you to be able to expand, to do other messages, to meet more people. So I had this one pastor that I'm working on his book right now, and I'll show it to you guys next week. It's called The Hope Switch. It's getting ready to come out. It's a real cool book. And we had a conversation about whatever it was, 6-7 months ago, because he was telling me, I kind of feel like, I've been in this church, I have a great congregation, but I feel like I'm feeling called outside of the walls of my church. I have some people that are asking me to speak and all these different things. I need to kind of get a message, and we'll talk about a signature message, which I haven't really mentioned yet, but that's a big one. He really was seeking out, I need to kind of establish, what is my message? What is it that I want to share with people? And so one of the things that I walked through with him as a process, I said, listen, what when you're up there teaching a sermon, when you're in a church, and for those of you who've ever spoken in front of public before, you know this is the case, is you can feel the audience. You can tell when they're responding to you. You get feedback from them. And so my biggest question to him was, what have you been teaching that has gotten a very positive response? What is it people want to hear more of? I've even in counseling sessions, what is it that keeps coming up? What is it that you're hearing? Because whatever that is, there may be a reason why people are coming to you, whether it's marriage advice or whatever it happens to be. If you kind of just open your eyes a little bit and look around, you can kind of realize, what is my wheelhouse? What is it that I feel maybe is a gifting that God has for me that might become a main component for me to, formalize a ministry or to start, a new program or a podcast or whatever it is. It's a very, very big question. This really needs to be nailed down if you're going to do this right. Regardless of how grandiose your vision is and how big you want to get, that's later on. But the reality is we're putting all this together and focusing on helping people. That's what our goal is. And that's why we're doing this with Dream Big Today Publishing. When I talked to Elizabeth, I told her how many people that I talked to that have really good messages. They have incredible stories of things that have happened, but there is this disconnect between who they are and where they are, and maybe something that they see in the future, or they maybe see other people doing, in ministry. I mean, I've mentioned I've worked for Harrison House Publishing for several years, and Joyce Meyer, for those of you who've ever heard of Joyce Meyer was, for all intents and purposes, invented by Harrison House. Sounds crude to say that, but she was doing Bible studies in her garage back in the day. So all of them start in this front place that we're at right now, and we're wrestling with these things. And at the same time, we're looking to God for guidance. Tell us, what is it we're supposed to be doing? So when I'm asking you about your message, that's what we're talking about. What's in your wheelhouse? What is it you love to study? If you're trying to determine what topic should I be writing on, or maybe you have a story, but you don't really know exactly how to turn what happened in that story into, here's the 4 things I did, or here's the keys. I always encourage people, if you're really trying to seek out what your wheelhouse is, what is it that's your message? What is it you get jazzed about? What are you passionate about? What is it you're constantly going to your phone to see another video, to go look at it and see what you're excited about? I know about you, but I have those. And there's certain things that I love and I can't get enough of it. And so those are all indicators for us. Another thing that I mentioned last week, that I had bought this very expensive course from somebody who does an online course and how to do your own online courses. I said the word online course several times there in a row. But one of the things that she said is she had a little exercise where she would literally send emails, tell you, go send emails to 10 of your friends and say, I'm trying to work on this. What is it that you see in me? What is it that you think I'm good at? What is it you think, is my wheelhouse? Because sometimes, man, they can surprise you. People many times are standing outside the forest and they could see our trees a lot clearer. So. And then the last thing is what is in your content ball? And I'm going to talk a little bit about this today because you're going to see this show up super fast when we start talking about some of these guys that are, let me make sure we're recording. Some of these guys that are doing some of these big things here, you'll see that they have way more than one message. They really have what I like to call a content ball. They got this ball of content. And then the question becomes, well, what are we going to do with that content and how are we going to sell it and all those different things? Okay, so one of the things that I showed you last week was, this is the methodology that I have really seen in my 35 plus years. And it is the formula that essentially I follow for just about every project that I get involved in. Sometimes when people come to us to publish books, they've already written the book, they already have the title, they already have the subtitle, they already kind of halfway know what they're doing. And so, we can look at some of these things and possibly make tweaks. But what I love about this framework right here is that this is a framework that allows you to step-by-step walk through the planning of what you're getting ready to do, write a book, writing the book, and then also launching the book. So most of what we're going to be talking about in these 5 courses is going to happen in the plan section. We'll see if we want to go further and keep teaching on this. That is a possibility. But, we talked a little bit last week about establishing the problem. Again, you have to establish the problem so that you can show the reader that you have the solution to it. So that's a big deal. We've talked a little bit about researching subject demand. We'll do some more of that in the next couple sessions. But what I wanted to talk about today is this idea of a unique selling proposition. And this very much ties in with positioning and this idea of building an author platform, or one of the main components of that is expert status. So that's one of the main things that I want to talk about today. So we've talked a little bit about your story, and we'll talk a little bit next week about the hero's journey. I'm not going to get into that this week because it's almost its own session. But one of the things that I like when you're telling your story or when you're considering what you want to be working on and what you want to write on, is each of us, whether it's you individually, your company, your ministry, whatever it happens to be, your brand, your podcast, your book, your course, whatever it happens to be, is our goal is to create a statement that we can give to the outside world. Some people call it an elevator pitch. It's the idea you step into an elevator. Hi, I'm Chris. What do you do? That they used to call it an elevator pitch. Well, we today call it unique selling proposition. And really, ultimately, what that means is you are trying to identify the space between the demand, what your customers want, and what things are in your wheelhouse. That's the perfect sweet spot. That's what your unique selling proposition needs to be. If you don't have anybody who's interested in it, if you do something that's weird, like, underwater basket weaving, there's no demand for it. So you have to have demand, and then you have to have your wheelhouse, and then you find in this space what is your unique selling proposition, and then you work very carefully to create and craft a phrase or a sentence. And that sounds like it might be a homework assignment in college, but honestly, this idea of a unique selling proposition, this idea of crystallizing who it is that you actually are and what it is that you're actually offering to the world is super important. If you haven't done this, then how do you know that you're actually reaching what you need to be doing? So if you guys want to take a screen capture of this, I'm not sure I'll go through all of it, but because I want to make sure we have enough time for all this. But if you really want to learn how to write a compelling, unique proposition, there's three main deals to it. One of them is you have to know what everybody in your space is doing for you to be able to determine how to position yourself in a unique way. I mean, obviously that sounds obviously. How do you have a unique selling proposition if you don't know what everybody else is selling? And again, we're not just talking about brands here, and I'm not even talking about a book. I'm talking about you, what it is, who that you are. I mentioned this last week, but if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I really want to go into teaching leadership and I want to write a book on leadership, I'd be like, well, that's great. So unless you've really done something unbelievably major in leadership, that's one of those subjects out there that is very, very heavily saturated for books. There's a lot of books on leadership. So, you have to know what your competition is. And then after you know that, then you can take a look at who you are versus what they're doing. And you want to identify what's different. What is it that's different about me? I mentioned last week this idea of blue ocean and the red ocean. The red ocean is this industry where we're all trying to sell books or products or whatever it is that we're doing. And because the competition builds up, the water gets red because all the sharks are consuming all of the people. And so we don't want to be in the red ocean. We want to create our own blue ocean. And the only way to do that is to be able to identify yourselves in a way that is completely separate from everybody else that's over there. So if you ever want to read a good book, that Blue Ocean Strategy is a fantastic book. I think it was in the early 2000s that came out. So what differentiates you? And then understand what your customers' needs are. We're going to talk in the fourth session about really nailing down who is your tribe, who is it that you're actually trying to reach. And the reason why that matters is because if you're trying to find a way to teach something that is going to be to everybody, it's going to end up really not being to a specific group. You can't be everything to everybody. It's just the reality of it. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit about USP some more here, and then I'll get into some of the examples that I have. But this is the process that I go through when I deal with authors who haven't really figured this out, or they're trying to get this put together. And actually, it happens a lot. A lot of the people that I work with, they're writing and publishing a book, and they're doing that at the same time. They're kind of hanging their shingle out. They're kind of putting themselves out there. The book helps them get a speaking engagement, or it might open doors for them to be able to see new clients, or whatever it happens to be. So this is the process that we walk through. Number one, list what makes your ministry, your story, or your book unique. Research your competitors. We talked about that. Find gaps in the market. Compare your differentiators against your customers' needs. Analyze your findings to identify your strongest angle or your strongest places of uniqueness. And that's the other thing that's really smart to do, is to do 2 or 3 of these and to test them. And we won't get into testing right now, but there's all kinds of ways that you can do A/B testing, whether you're doing outbound emails or social media, and you can start to get an idea of which one of these positioning statements that you created seems to resonate more with people. So another one here, I don't know if you want to take a screen capture of this, but this is another one, and I'll show you here with Eileen in just a minute exactly how this works. But you've probably nowadays seen videos, Russell Brunson, who is the inventor of ClickFunnels and has really built a huge sub-industry. I mean, they're their own entity. This entity of online training and selling information products. And a lot of this stuff is what they have figured out and they've made work. But if you're looking for a statement like that, you can put your brand or your ministry, you offer what product or service, fill in the blank there, who's it for, and what's it for. And then the third statement that I love the most is, unlike the alternative, we're different. So in that USP formula, we pretty much covered all 3 of the things that we talked about just a minute ago right up here. So the unique selling proposition is an important one. So I think that's what we should work on this week before next Thursday. So, all right, so here's a case study. All right. Eileen Wilder has been a longtime friend of mine. I met her because I've published a couple books for her. This one right here that I'm getting ready to show you, we did in 2014. And she had just moved from Washington, D.C. area to Houston, Texas to be on staff at Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's church. And they're still on staff there. But her and her husband are both very well-educated people. They're very much stage people. And over the last several years, they have really taken a lot of this new understanding of how to market information products and really taken it to the next level. And so the reason why I wanted to show you this book is a couple things. One, I want you to see this cover, because in this cover, we masterfully did many specific things that, again, most people don't think about this but when they see a book, but most of this stuff was very, very intentional. So anyway, I'll tell you what her story is here in a minute. You're going to see what her story is, but let me just take a minute and kind of show you what we did on this cover. We're always after expert status. We've talked about expert status a lot. We've talked about the unique selling proposition. We've talked about selling, the who, what, where, and the why. So you'll notice on here, one of the top things that we put on this cover is a quote by Lisa Bevere. So testimonials, they're a huge way for you to be able to, we call it borrowing credibility. You're really borrowing credibility from somebody who knows you, vouches for you. Yeah, Eileen, she's not off her rocker. She's a good person. I love the title, Brave Body Method. It's got the word method in there. And then look at the subtitle here, How to Win the War on Weight and Gain Self-Acceptance in 4 Easy Steps. So whenever you're reading a book cover like this, what most people don't realize is that we're constantly self-talking, and we don't even notice it because it's just happening all the day. We're thinking, oh, I forgot to go change the laundry. Did I take my vitamins? I got to pick the kids up from school. Look at me in the mirror. Oh, I look awful. I can't believe this. We just do this constantly. All of us do. And so everything that's on this cover and in this back cover was specifically written to be able to make a affirmation with a person's self-talk. And the everyman concept is one that's going on here. So everybody wants to win the war on weight, and all of us want to feel accepted. And so we have how to win the war on weight and gain self-acceptance in 4 easy steps. And then the other part that's directly below it here, it's sort of like a sub-header, is now you can finally discover your worth and be transformed from the inside out. So that's telling you what the result is going to be of you going through this 4 steps. And again, finally, you can stop struggling and start losing weight for good. We did all of the learned how-tos. We very carefully crafted each one of these bullet points so that everybody is able to, at some point, they're going to read one of those and go, yeah, that sounds like me. all of those there. And then we have 3 testimonials from people. And of course, they're all very positive. And so anyway, you can see kind of that. So one of the things that Eileen did is she started selling online courses. And so we worked on several projects together. 2 of the books that I did for her weren't even on Amazon. They were solely as books that were a giveaway whenever she was doing her course offers or using it as lead generation. And so I wanted to show you some of this because she does such a masterful job to, in a very quick couple of screens that you'll see on the PowerPoint here, she communicates to you in a way that you automatically feel like, man, I love this woman. I want to be her friend. So I actually grabbed these right off of a PowerPoint that she did a couple years ago because it's just so good. So right at the very top, it's a free masterclass. She's offering, free learning, which is essentially what we're doing right now. I mean, what we're doing right now here for Dream Big Today Publishing is we're offering you some information, and we want you to be able to be encouraged from it. We want you to understand who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it's a very similar thing, but her unique selling proposition shows up here in these little statements. You're going to learn this from a best-selling author and biblical coach. That's a good little elevator pitch right there. I actually like that, the biblical coach thing. You always do a number of 3 secrets to living. And then I just love this. This is the title for her course, How to Work from Anywhere and Make Money Doing What You Love. Now, basically every single person who reads that phrase would say, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to work from anywhere. I'd love to make money doing what I love. And then the second part is even better. Without selling anyone ever, and it's all in a way that fully honors God. I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. Because now I'm looking at this and I'm sitting here going, oh, that sounds very interesting to me, but I wonder if this is something that's for me. Oh, well, let's go down to this. Who's this for? Well, this is perfect for anyone who's thinking about starting a business or building their business or just feels totally stuck. So here's the demographic. Starting a business, trying to build your business, but she's also saying, hey, or even if you feel stuck, anybody who's got a heartbeat, anybody who wants to improve, this is for you. So in some ways, she's telling you it's about business, but in other ways, she's basically including every man. So, okay, so on her slides, she tells her story a little bit, and I just wanted to go through this real quick because it's really, really cool. Notice how she uses her kids, by the way, in the pictures, and just you have that feeling that they're a wholesome family. I just copied and pasted some of her things that she was talking about, but basically that's her as a child. What she didn't know is that from a very early age, she had social anxiety attacks. She felt like she was an ugly duckling. She hated her appearance. She hated her personality. She hated her talents. She just had all of these issues that she dealt with. And because of that, she actually, and very shy and secure, early on in her life, she became not anorexic, it's the wrong word, where you basically, make yourself, what is it called when you make yourself throw up so that you don't get fat? But it's not really anorexia.
Bulimic.
Bulimic. That's the word. Thank you. Bulimic. So she turned bulimic. So, and again, she's telling this story as you go along, and I'm just kind of showing the pictures, but she literally felt like, man, I do not have what it takes. I have all these eating disorders. I'm depressed about it. And so that's her story that she's telling you that basically justifies for her why she's earned the right to be heard. She, was overweight. She overcame all of these, body dysmorphia issues. And that's why she wrote the Brave Body Method. So I would love to have taken the time to show you how she says it. You guys can look her up online. She's really a great lady, great woman. But the idea behind all that is all of this that she walked through there and telling her story has been crafted. It makes us connect with her. It makes us go, you know what, I like her. I might like that book, and sometimes just that little sliver of just feeling better about somebody is the difference between somebody clicking the purchase button on Amazon versus not clicking the button on Amazon. It is what it is. So each one of these pieces that we put together, the bio, the title, the colors that we're using. Obviously, this is targeting the female audience because it's got the pink on it. her, even showing here, her books coming out. She's done a great job with it. And I even pulled, this is even off of her social media account. This is the last one the last screen that's on there. I couldn't believe it. More than that, I was now reaching people and feeling like I was fulfilling what God had put me here to do. And she happens to show an image of them on stage at Lakewood Church, which, I don't know, the majority of Christian Americans would obviously recognize that and realize what that is. And so that picture creates gap. It says, hey, I've earned the right to be heard on this. I'm not some Yahoo who's writing from her closet, in the middle of nowhere. I'm a person who is worthy of being listened to. And so that talks about that same idea of the right to be heard. How do you communicate to a reader before they bought your book that you've earned the right to be heard on a space? I talked last week about Lee Cockrell, the Walt Disney senior vice president of the Disney Corp over all the Orlando World Resorts, and he, for 13, 14 years, managed 40,000 employees and used his pocket day timer to do it. So when we wrote a book on time management, it sold like hotcakes because we had demonstrated that he had earned the right to be heard in the space of time management. So that same idea, as you're thinking about yourself and all the things that you think you might want to teach on or share on, or what you might, what might be the different facets of what you're getting ready to launch, we have to also say, okay, if that's what I'm going to do, then how do I explain that I've earned the right to be heard on a particular space? So one of those ways is actually a book. I mean, one of the best ways to show that you've earned the right to be heard is to publish a book, because I just can't even tell you how many people that I have worked with. And I tell them all the time, I said, I've told multiple people in the last week or two this exact same thing. Dude, I'm just telling you, when you do this, when you hang it out there, when you put that book on and you put it up on Amazon or you publish it, wherever that is or how you're doing it, things change. People perceive you differently. You're considered different on a different level. And whether or not that's 100% earned, the reality is it's the truth. A book is a great way for you to be able to launch yourself if you're wanting to do that. Another one is a guy named Dave Martin. I'd love to show you some of his stuff real quick. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we're doing good. Everybody enjoying this so far? You guys learning stuff? All right. Nobody said anything, so hopefully that's the case. I think I saw a nod.
Great.
Thank you. That's awesome. So, I should show you real quick. Here, I was going to show you this real fast. So this is, now, let me just say this. I understand that she comes across as very glitzy and polished, and I get all that. And somebody might look at her and go, you know what, that could all be, a lot of that could be a facade. She seems like, it could even be potentially a negative. Somebody could look at that and go, I don't know that I want anything to do with a person like that. That's just not who I am. I'm not like that person. And I will tell you, she's definitely different in that way. But, so this is her website. I'll show you some of the stuff that she does. And again, she has spent good money getting good stock, good images, press images done for herself. She explains exactly who she is on her site. She's encouraging you got to just start before you're ready. Here's some of the things that she does. She has a podcast called The Confident Closer. And she also has a community where entrepreneurs and speakers and coaches can come. So she's got some great things going on. When I went to go find out some more, she's pushing me to her next course that she's doing, which I think she does one a year. Maybe it's one every other year. And again, I know that each of us might not all be saying, yes, this is exactly the thing I want to do. But I feel like you guys need to see what's happening today. You need to know this is what's going on. This is the level of people right now that are entering into this space. And I don't show this to you for you to be intimidated by any stretch of the imagination, because everybody has a niche. You don't have to, it doesn't all have to be as slick and beautiful as this. She has spent a lot of money developing this out. What I'm telling you is, in your own space, in your own world, in your own wheelhouse, you can do exactly the same thing. It's no different. I almost hate the fact that I'm showing you somebody right off the bat that's so slick and has it so down, but I'm showing you this is what people are doing and working on. That's the book we did, the other one that we did for her, Pivot Plan. And she's got another one came out. I think they just self-published it, Financially Free, that just came out like a week or two ago. I helped her with a printer on it. But anyway, and again, you can go to her Facebook, and she's got little, videos that she's doing, and same kind of thing. So anyway, enough of that. I just wanted you guys to see that. I hope that was okay, and hopefully that casts some vision for each of us in what we're doing. Okay, another guy that I've done a lot of work for, Dave Martin. I don't know if you know who this is. These guys all run in different veins. He right now is very tight with John Maxwell, who's a leadership guy. So he's one of the top guys that goes out and speaks with John Maxwell. But he didn't start that way. About 15 years ago, Dave Martin was a nobody, and he was an assistant for another minister guy that used to have a television program. And this is before 2000. This is way back. But he started early on, speaking and crafting his gift. And I did one of his first books called The 12 Traits of the Greats. And he has several others that I'll show you here in a minute. And we'll come back to this screen. Maybe just go to the web and I'll show you who he is. So the reason why I wanted to show, again, he's been doing this for 15, 20 years. This is the level he's at. We don't all start tomorrow and get to this level. But trust me, if you walk this path and do these steps correctly with God's grace, you can do this. I've worked with dozens of these guys that are in this space. So for me, it's not an issue of faith. I look at it and I go, oh yeah, you could totally do that if you want. It's a lot of work. We're going to have to do this and this and this and walk through it. But the idea is, if that's your goal, what I'm showing you here, it is absolutely doable. So anyway, so let me look at his page real quick. I did several of the books that he has on here. One of the ones that we did there, Another Shot. I did that one under Emerge right after I was out of Harrison House. But he really wanted to, he was a chaplain for some basketball, one of the teams, I forgot who it was. And he really wanted to do a book that the demographic was men, not just women. And so we very specifically, intentionally built this book to be more attractive to a man because they love basketball. It used a lot of the same words, here's our goals and the 3 points and, all that kind of stuff. And you can't see it on there. The quote that we had on there was from some sports figure. I don't remember now who it was, but it was very, very intentionally done. So I did that one, 12 Traits, A Force of Favor. Miracles was one of the last ones I did for him. And then Mindset Matters, he just self-published as a course. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is when we go into, where's my next one? Oh yeah, when we go into the courses, he has books. But here's the key that I wanted to show you with this is, and we talked about that content ball a minute ago. Let's talk about the content ball. So you have someone like me who, let's just take me for example, because it'd be easy for me to do, or even my father-in-law would be a good example, is I have a lot of knowledge in different areas. I have a lot of knowledge in the area of publishing and marketing because I made myself a student of it. So if I wanted to write a bunch of books, I could easily write in publishing, or I could write in, there's different things. But at the same time, I'm also, in the last several years, become very passionate about some things that are happening in the area of science and how science and Christianity, how science is proving Christianity. And even in some of these areas, like I've started exploring and understanding some of the ancient Paleo-Christian beliefs, some of the things that the Jews originally had. So I now have this entirely new understanding of the constellations and how God has created this whole thing and how each of the planets and all this stuff, it connects and it jives with the Bible. It's this whole new thing that I've been heading down the path. So I say all that to say is, if I was going to do what Dave's doing, I could have a series on publishing. I could have a series on, ministry, developing your ministry. I could have one that was out to men. I've done a lot of, for several years, I had an internet technology company at the turn of the century. Doesn't it sound funny to say that, the turn of the century? But man, that was 25 years ago. That's a quarter of a century ago was 2000. That's just bonkers. But I had an internet technology company called Family Connected. We started from scratch, and we were one of the best practices and the best softwares for protecting kids online at schools and libraries from the early onslaught of pornography and a lot of the bad stuff that was coming onto the internet early on. So I testified multiple times before Congress. I worked with Steve Largent, and when he was our first district congressman, and we are the only people that have ever gotten a bill passed in the government that allows individual schools to be able to put internet filtering on their terminals. And again, this is years back, so a lot of this isn't relevant in the same way today. I'm just basically saying I have a bunch of subjects that I actually could talk on. So if my choice was, hey, I want to put a new book out, I have to decide, okay, well, what is the most relevant information? What has the most demand? Is there an audience that is seeking this information? Is some of this new to the world that I could position it in a different way? These are all decisions that you have to make. But part of why I showed you this, it doesn't mean you can only have to do one thing. You can do different things if you have different content balls. So we got the content ball. Let's go back to that idea. So you have this content ball, and let's say the content ball, just for the sake of this, would be the what I was talking a minute ago about publishing. So let's take a look at that content ball and almost see it almost like it's a wagon wheel, like it's the center of this infographic in this diagram. I should have made a graphic to show you, but one thing that you could do with that content ball is you could write a book on it. It's like a spoke coming off of that wagon wheel. I could do a website. I could do a blog. I could do a podcast. I could do YouTube videos. I could do weekend seminars. And you start thinking about all these things that you could potentially do. And you might have 10, 12, 15 different products or information products that you could create. And you're not repeating 10 or 15 of all new information. It's all the same content ball. It's just a different format. Does that make sense? So one of the things that you have to decide, once you know what your subject is, you have to decide, okay, for my audience, what's the format? Is it I'm going to be best served by doing this in a book? Is this something that requires multiple stages and training? Do I want to do this in an online course? Do I want to become a consultant and do it one-on-one? You have two models. You have the one-to-one model, which is what a consultant is. And then you have the one-to-many model, which is what Eileen is doing. She's taking her content and she's distributing it in a model that's one-to-many. And the many is the people who are on this call. You're the many. I'm not doing this one-to-one. I'm doing it one-to-many. So all those different things are things that you're going to have to think about. So I wanted to show this to you because this gives you a good idea of how some of that stuff works. So one of the things that I'm working on with him right now is we're going to start doing he has a coaching program that's $297. We're going to start we're going to do 4 this year, so 1 a quarter, where we're doing a much lower price point. I think it's going to be $59 or $49, and it'll be like a miniature course. And so as we've been talking about this, we have had these same conversations. Okay, well, let's put the book out because we want the book to be on Amazon, because that's, and let's price that really competitively because we want as many people to buy that book, because we're going to seed throughout the book, hey, we got these other courses. Maybe at the end we have 3 or 4 pages at the back of the book that talk about other things that we're doing. And so we are literally deciding that the format for these little mini courses is to hit a particular demographic who doesn't want to spend $300 on a course, but we might be able to get them to spend $49 on a course. So anyway, that's why I wanted to show you that. So we got to keep moving here. It's already 7:45. Okay, let me show you another one. This is another great one that carries over into the secular space. So this is not really ministry related. And it's this guy whose name is Chris Jorgensen. He's in Colorado Springs. Love this guy. He's just fantastic. We did a book, I guess it's been maybe 1.5 years ago now, maybe 2 years ago. Gosh, time flies. And his whole deal is he has worked with like very high-end specialty nonprofits, like a March of Dimes would be a very large nonprofit organization. You have Christian ones too, but the other one that's in Colorado Springs that does the, I'm forgetting the name of it. There's another really, really big one that he worked at for several years. And so for years, he's worked in this nonprofit space, and he's worked with the boards of these large corporations that are making multi-million-dollar decisions. And what he does is he comes in and he helps them strategize and figure out, hey, the last 10 years we've done well, but in the last few years, I feel like we're not doing well financially. What happened? And he'll come in and he's kind of like a fixer. And so he is a great Christian guy. And so he found a parallel with the story of Nehemiah rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem. And he uses that as a blueprint for what he does when he comes into a company and he consults for them. So in this particular case, Chris Jorgensen created this book because it helps him have expert status with these other companies. If they're choosing between a guy who seems like he's great, well, we also got this other guy who seems like he's great, but also he's a published author on the actual subject that we're talking about, we're going to pick that guy. It's not rocket science, and it's certainly not magic. That's just the way our world works. If I have a family member, a loose family member that's in my world, and this person has done more plastic surgery. It's comical to me. They've done a lot of plastic surgery. Okay, I'll just be honest. And the funny thing is every time it comes up, she goes out of her way to make sure that I know that she is using the best guy in town. That is just the best. And I think everybody thinks their plastic surgery must be the best. Otherwise, they wouldn't risk going under the knife from somebody who's bad. But there certainly had to be somebody who was at the bottom of the graduating class when it came to plastic surgery. I don't know who they are or where they're at, but the point I'm trying to make is if you're doing something like plastic surgery, you are going to go out of your way to make sure that you have the best of the best. Is that not true? I know it's happened in my life. We had my son cracked his head open doing something, and it was on a weekend night, and the hospital was going to stitch him up, and it was going to be right on his forehead. And we were like, no, you need to get the plastic surgeon guy on call. My dad was a doctor. I know how these things work. We just said, you got to get the plastic surgeon guy that's on call to come do it. And it was weekend. He's not going to do it. Have him come into the office on Tuesday and we'll do it. I held my foot down because you don't mess around with things like plastic surgery. Okay, so I don't know why I got off on the plastic surgery thing, except to say that doing a book can also be a primary thing that you do to generate or create expert status in how you're perceived, not just if it's a company, but the same in a ministry. I mean, or if you're going to be a speaker, if you want to be a speaker nowadays, you pretty much have to have, you need to pretty much have a book. So anyway, all right, so let's move on with that. There was some great stuff on that book that was really good. Again, his USP is right on his LinkedIn. I mean, if you looked at his LinkedIn, it is right there. Helping nonprofits realize their potential and maximize mission impact. That's almost verbatim that formula we were talking about. And then here's his book subtitle. We spent, hours and hours and days going back and forth to make sure every single one of these words was optimized to target in the exact way that we intended. We faith focused. We went back and forth on that forever. But the thing is, it sounds like, gosh, you guys are being a little extreme on some of these things, but I will tell you, it gave us extremely good results. He's done extremely well since this book has come out. It's just really been a great thing. So anyway, and then here's his the proposition is unleash your organization's potential by creating sustained strategic focus, organization effectiveness, and maximizing your mission impact. So he's big on moving back to your mission. What was your original mission? So anyway, so that was that. Okay. Last thing I wanted to talk about just for a minute, and then we'll pick this up tomorrow or next week. We'll definitely work on the hero's journey, but I wanted to talk for a minute about this formula. And this formula is something that I've known about for several years. And right off the bat, it seems fairly trivial. Maybe by looking at it, you kind of go, okay, yeah, big deal. Intention versus mechanism equals results. What does that mean? Well, where this came from was for several years, we had a guy that used to come and speak at all of our families. We do a big conference in Hawaii every year. This last year was the 43rd consecutive year in a row that we have done conferences over on one of the islands in Hawaii. And when we do that, we bring about 300 or 400 people from the mainland and about 100 people from other countries. Sometimes it's 10, 15 countries come over. And it's a very big deal. So this is part of how I've gotten to learn a lot of this stuff and meet a lot of these people. We've had, Oral Roberts has spoken for us, T.L. Osborne, Miles Monroe, Zig Ziglar, the list goes on. So it's a lot of people. So I've learned a lot of this stuff. Well, one of those people that I learned from was a guy whose name was Brian Clemmer. Sadly, Brian died several years ago in a very tragic way. He had a lesion on the inside of his esophageal cord that ruptured, and he bled to death just sitting in a chair. He has a brilliant mind. But anyway, his daughter is somebody named Crystal Zelmer, and I wanted to just introduce you to her for a couple of reasons. But this idea right here, this intention versus mechanism equals results, is moving forward, kind of from where we're at right now, and as we even transition and start moving into writing, this formula becomes very, very important, because each of us, we would love to say, my intention, is to become a published author. And you might even have a mechanism where you can say, well, I can go and get the book published. And when you do that, then that's the result. But the thing about intention is intention is really exactly what's ending up happening right now. And I should have Crystal show it to you. I'll give you guys a couple links of things that if you want to watch some more on it, I think you would really like it. But Crystal Zelmer, here, let's do this. I'll show you her. Crystal Zelmer is just an absolute awesome lady. And she wrote a book a year ago called Life by Intention. I was just with her in Palm Springs in October. She spoke at one of our conferences that we did in Palm Springs. And we got to talking about this, and I was reminded of this that I had learned many years back. But the thing that, we'll talk some more about intention versus mechanism, but the reason why I wanted to show this to you was for those people who say, like, I want to write a book, but how do I really get people to know how great the book is or what's inside of it if they don't know who I am and have never seen me before? I've never spoken anywhere. I don't have anything to work with yet. And so this right here is a very good example of something that you as an author can do. And this, now, she has some nice graphics and thing on here, but generally speaking, nowadays, for you to shoot a YouTube video basically doesn't cost you anything. If you have even an iPhone, you can do it. So what she did to help promote her book and again, she uses this as a lead-in or a lead generator for people to come to their high-end seminars that they do. She did a video for each one of the chapters. And so let's just watch it for a second. Tell me if you can't hear it, but you should be able to hear it, because all she's doing is she's making a connection with you as the reader on a personal level and sharing with you the main parts of it. So let's can you guys hear it? Do you hear her? So you don't hear her talking?
No, we can't hear her.
Darn. Oh man, how are we going to do that? Maybe I'll put a link to it. What she basically did is she gets on here, and it's a 5-minute video, and then I think chapter 2 is a 3-minute video. It's not a big deal. She just gets on and she gives a little example from the book, and I'll put a link in it when I send you guys this video, because there's a couple things I'd like you to see. One is this idea of intention mechanism is something that we all need to adopt. If you're considering publishing a book, if you're considering formalizing yourself in a ministry or a business or whatever it is that you're doing, if you are willing to understand and learn this intention mechanism formula, it will change your life, and it will cause you to see results when you wouldn't otherwise. So I'll send that to you. Really good stuff though. And so we'll see that. All right, well, let's go back to where we were and let's see if there was anything else that we're going to talk about. Oh yeah, so next week, I want to talk about, we are going to talk, well, we talked about the right to be heard a little bit, but where did my other screen go? What was the other one I had? Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's what my problem is. Hold on. That was session 1. So intention versus mega, we'll talk some more about that. And then also the hero's journey. Let me, how many of you, does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say the hero's journey? Have you ever heard that before? Is that a phrase, you guys? Give me a thumbs up or down. Nobody's ever heard about it. Okay.
I only heard it when I met with you. You briefly.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did talk about it. That's right, we did. So this is the next big thing. I probably will spend the entire next session talking about this. But what the hero's journey is, and then we'll let you guys go here, give me like 3 minutes, is they found out years back, these 2 screenwriter guys, this is back in, I think it was the late 70s, they started realizing that in fiction stories, Moby Dick or whatever book is, the popular one, or, these classics, and also movies that have done real well, they started realizing that there was a formula to it, that in these movies where the storyline ran a particular path, let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. If you'd like me to tell you, I'll just give this one last example. Have you seen the movie Cars, Disney's movie Cars? Okay, wonderful movie, absolutely great movie. Back when Disney was making good movies. And the deal with Cars was you have Lightning McQueen, and he's just kind of arrogant, and he's kind of a jerk. You don't really like him at the beginning, because he's always winning and everybody kind of doesn't like him. Well, he's on his way in a semi-truck to the Piston Cup on the West Coast. Something happens. He comes flying off the truck, and basically his life goes sideways. He gets on this side road through a series of circumstances. He gets stuck, and I mean he is stuck. And so a chunk of the movie is him trying to escape it. And finally, after trying to escape through all these different ways, he finally decides to do this. Well, what you're seeing here is you're watching, at the beginning of the movie, Lightning McQueen's not really the hero of the story. He's kind of a jerk. But by the end of the movie, he's our hero. We love him. We want to cheer for him. So what's happening in that hour and a half that's causing us to go from you're a jerk to, okay, we love you very much. And the reason why this matters is because we can apply this exact same formula, not just to your book and your storyline, what you're teaching and training, but you can apply it directly to your story, to your bio. And when you do that, now again, I'm not talking about making stuff up. We only do truth. We're not making anything up ever. But if you understand all of these different points that happen in the hero's journey, we can tailor your story so that when we tell others your story, you become the hero to them. They want to cheer for you and they want to root for you. So it's a very important thing. So let's go back to the Cars and then we'll be done. So his thing goes sideways. He meets a few people. He kind of meets this older car that's a little bit, don't know what his past is, but maybe this guy had, some kind of important thing that had happened. He kind of meets this female character. And then ultimately he ends up getting back, and he ends up at the end of the movie at the Piston Cup. And, they're going around and he's competing with the old guy, but he's the older car, but he's also trying to beat this other car. And again, it's been a while since I saw the movie. But the idea is that one of the cars bumps another one off, and Lightning McQueen, because of that, is about ready to win the race. He's literally about to cross the finish line, slams on his brakes, backs up, rolls over, flips the other old man car over and pushes him across the finish line. And the guy's like, why would you have done that? You had the race, you could have won. And he said, well, because somebody once told me, the Piston Cup, a cup is just a cup. So we now have witnessed this transformation, this trajectory change that has happened in this character. And because of us walking through that with them, through that problem, conflict, escalation, climax, resolution, that now he's the hero of the story. So what we're going to talk about next week is, and again, all of this stuff you kind of have to do at once because we're trying to decide exactly what the book should be, exactly how that should be targeted. Maybe at the same time, on top of that, we have a layer where we're putting together or formalizing a business or a company or a ministry. And then also we have this personal aspect to it because, everybody wants to follow somebody who's an inspirational character. If you're a Debbie Downer, you're not going to get very far. Nobody's coming to your seminar. So you really have to look at some of these things in your life and say, if I'm really trying to step onto the public stage and I want to really make a difference in all this stuff, I have to take a look at myself and I have to make sure that I look the best I can be. Do I fit the demographic of who I'm trying to reach? You know, what are my communication skills? Are there things I need to work on? Do I need to become a better communicator? And again, I'm not saying all this, guys, for this to be overwhelmed. I'm not. I'm just giving you a good sized chunk of peek into the future. I'm showing you what the future is when you start to follow this path. And I'm sure you can kind of see how that could happen. We've talked a little bit about expert status. Well, there's a lot of people like, I don't know that much, and I certainly haven't had a bunch of experiences. I can't talk about the time that, I was with some celebrity or, person, but those kinds of things, you can take the approach of Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell, I love and will read every one of his books, but most of his books are talking about other people's stories. And then he's giving you his opinion and his insight, and his value comes from what he's talking about when he shares these other stories. So again, I'm saying this because I want to encourage you guys. You can do this. That I do this all day long. This is doable. But you're not hearing it from a lot of people. There's not a lot of people out there saying it. And I don't know if that's because they don't believe it, but I do believe it because I do this for a living and I've done it for decades. I know these things work. So anyway, I encourage you guys, you can do this. It's a matter of learning and understanding some of these principles and giving some good thought to what you're doing and then taking action and moving forward on it. So